You come to talk about something that they don't necessarily know, because for everyone in Africa, we live the same way. Everybody has the same rights. Why making something specific about certain group of people when the entire population or the entire people need also rights? If you want to talk about rights, you have human rights that are always violated in Africa every day. When you talk about institutions that are not strong in Africa, it's a fact. You see every time on TV or social media how Africans complain about how in Africa the situation that we are going through is unacceptable. So the president of Senegal, Macky Sall, told him, Mr. Obama, you have nothing against what you say, but this is the situation. Okay, we are a Muslim country. So you see that how it is like a little bit disrespectful in a way when you come to tell them to do something that people do not know or are not ready for. Give them time. He told him, we are Muslim countries. And that situation is going to completely make the society in every sense of the word. And he stated to Mr. Obama that what you are asking is a societal issue, which is completely right. When a country has been living in a certain way with a culture, you don't come from the outside and tell them how to live when this country has been peacefully living in a way. Because usually what happens is when you do that, and I've seen that in history of the world, every time that people from the outside, leaders from the outside, make a suggestion or push an agenda or push something to another country, sometimes the country find, and most of the time the country find themselves in a situation of instability, even sometimes to war, because some people do not accept it. Some people are not ready for some kind of change that they feel like it's an insult to their ancestor or something like that. So people have to understand it's very sensitive and it cannot push, maybe it can subject. But the problem is when he subject that, did he think about everything that the continent is going through a lot? Is going through. Okay? Africa is going through a lot. If you want to talk about some specific rights, please think about the other situation. Human rights are violated in Africa every time. I told you about jail. I told you about jail. Amnesty, you sometimes you try to contact Amnesty International to explain what is happening in jail in countries like mine. Even people are prisoners. Everybody is not criminal in prison. You have people who are political activists that are stuck and incarcerated in jail because of freedom, because of free speech. They have no freedom to voice their opinion about political situation that happen in the country, which is very much normal. Have you seen political activists being thrown in jail in your country? You country of the West, you country in America, have you seen political activists being thrown to jail because they try to voice their opinion? No, but in Africa it still happens. In Africa, you are killed to vote. Yeah, because when people vote, if the person who is in power does not agree with the result that he's losing and literally losing, what he does, he go in the street, okay? He used the army to kill people right in front of the world. That situation like that. When you think about that, you think about condition of jail. I remember in 90 or late 1890s, Amnesty International used to have a catalog of all the world. I mean, they were doing through. I mean, for each countries, they were doing a report of the year of what it was about human rights being violated in each country. I don't know if they still have it, if they still do it. I remember they did for Gabon because when my father was in jail, they wrote everything about what was happening in the country. Amnesty International was doing that. I don't know if they do it again because I don't know. Things are changing so much. I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know. But they used to do stuff like that in the old days. Okay, so when you open the catalog according to the country, you know what was happening, why human rights, how human rights were violated. And then you have situation of um, illegal immigration. Many young African people are leaving the continent. Why? Because they cannot dream. You have countries in Africa do not apply the rule of law. You cannot have rule of law. What does it mean? It means that for anything, for no reason, you can find yourself in a situation in jail or be persecuted or be executed for something that is not, because there is no rule of law. There is no rule of law in Africa. In countries, you don't know. Someone can die for the right reason and there is no justice. There is nothing. Institutions are obsolete. You have someone in power who sometimes can one day decide that he doesn't want to leave the power. He wants to stay. What happened now to Senegal? What is happening with Macky Sall? What Macky Sall is doing now in Senegal? You have to read the news to know what's happening. So when you come with a right, pushing a certain right, what about albino people who are going through a lot of persecution in some countries in Africa, who are even used until today as traditional sacrifice? Okay, what about them? What about women who are stuck in hospital with their children because they cannot pay the bills? Yeah, it happened not only in my country, it happened in some countries in Africa. You have women who want to give birth to children, to babies. They are stuck for years in the hospital because they cannot afford the bills to leave the hospital. What about that? Young people living a massive flow of illegal immigration. Young people are leaving the continent using very cheap ship, stuck in group, dying in the Mediterranean Sea. That's why you have countries like Spain, Italy, that are overwhelmed with the massive coming of young African, even women and children sometimes, stuck in the ship. Why? Why? Because dictatorial. Because if you don't have rule of law in your country, you have dictator, for sure. For sure. Dictator. No people can just happen to wake up and say, I want to stay there and remain in power. What are you going to do? There is no, institutions are obsolete. Institution have no power in our country. You have this situation. And when he going to talk like that, he had the answer of his own country, Kenya. The president of Kenya told him, we're not ready for that. Because when you talk about situations like that, think about if the countries have emergency situation. In Africa today, if you go to countries, I don't say that my continent is bad, but we have to be honest on what is happening. Okay? You have problem of water and electricity. I'm not lying. You can ask. Problem of water and electricity. Does that make any sense to you in 2023? And you think I will think about a specific right of some people when the entire population doesn't even have, all the rights they deserve as human? People are dying in hospital because they're not used, they're not treated, they're not cared with the human right. I myself went to my country. I saw how women give birth, in which condition. Nobody can say it's false because I saw it myself. I was crying as if it was myself. I saw women in my country. I cried because I felt like it was myself suffering. You cannot say that. Okay? You cannot say that. Okay? You have social injustice. You have political instability. People can remain in power whenever they want. And the central part of Africa is excellent. This is the best place. This is the nest of dictators. Yeah, do I have a choice? You have to work with them. If you want to work for the administration, you want to work with the government, you have to deal with the situation. You have to accept it. But are we happy on that? No, we're not happy. We want to see new face. You want to see new people bringing new things. You want democracy, education system. So what about that? Okay, what about that in some countries like mine? I told you I have a complete video on that. And you think that thinking about all this, you think this is the most important thing to worry about. I don't know. If people feel they're threat somewhere, the best thing to do is to ask for a refugee visa. My understanding. I don't know. If they don't have any children, they could probably contact Mr. Obama and say, Mr. Obama, this is a situation we are going through in Africa as as gay people, for example, because he really worry about them the most. Allow them to go to America easily so we can have a place to live where you go where you are loved. If you are hated in your own country, then yeah, you go. There was a well-known Black American actress. Her name was Josephine Baker. She left America because she understood that as a Black woman, she will never have any peace or opportunity in her own country. What did she do? She left. She went to France. She went to live in France. During the time of civil rights movement, she even tried again to go back to America and see if things were changing. And she even worked during the civil rights movement. When she saw that it didn't get any better, what did she do? What did she do? What did she do? She left. She went back to France again. She served France with her heart, her mind, her spirit. She gave everything to France. Today she's there, written, inscribed in the Panthéon. She's at the Panthéon, France. She stayed there because she knew that she's not loved in her country. And she was loved in France, even though at some point she had trouble with the situation of her house, of her mansion, and she was kicked out, I think. And Grace Kelly, the Princess of Monaco, who was US citizen as well, called her and helped her to find a place to stay. But then after that, she didn't dislike France. She was still serving France. During the war, she served France. She served France because that's where she felt like she had to live. Okay, so sometimes give examples. Tina Turner is another example. She left America forever. She left America to live in Europe. Anyway, so when you talk to culture, be very mindful and careful.